As a woman, I did not see enough female role models given the opportunity to do what I knew I had to do. To the young women, our future leaders, know that you're about to make the world turn. I see you.
For the last 40 years, we've been sold a lie about how to solve hunger. In the next decade, can we end hunger? Well, we've run the numbers, and the answer is that maybe we actually can.
I think one of the most important trends in the global economy today is the emergence of a global middle class.
The world is not a bowl of fruit from which we can just take what we wish. We are part of it, and if we destroy it, we destroy ourselves.
You see how, look at the whole thing.
This is the box for my phone, and on the back we have these two symbols, an FC and a CE. Now, you've maybe never noticed these symbols before, and they may seem pretty insignificant, but in a way, they are actually symbols of power. And by the end of this decade, you may see completely new symbols on the back of this box. After watching this video, you'll know what this means. Over the past year or two, I've found myself increasingly more and more focused on what the future has in store. I'm not sure if that's generally something that happens to people as they get older, but I can't remember a point in my life where I've ever been so fixated on the future. When I was a young kid, I feel as though I wasn't worried about it at all. I was completely immersed in the present moment. I would guess a large part of that is because as a young child, you don't have the best conception of time, and you don't really understand the relationship between long series of events taking place. So when my dad gifted me this book, 2030 by Mauro Guillen, I was immediately very interested to see what it was all about. And in today's video, I'd like to share with you what I learned by exploring these pages. I certainly learned a lot, and my hope is that you will too. I would say that this book had a very large impact on me, because if the author's forecasts are true, then our future is going to be drastically different than our present life today, and perhaps in ways that you might not expect. I think we generally have a hard time wrapping our heads around large changes in the way the world works because our perspectives are limited by our lifespans. We don't get to see series of events play out over multiple centuries, so I think we underestimate the impact of when large turning points can actually occur in our world and our society. I also think those of us who live in the West just take it for granted that the West will always be the world's #1 economic and otherwise superpower. A lot of the trends I'll be talking about in today's video challenge this position. And this ultimately relates to how we invest and manage our money, because right now in the United States, stock market forecasts are pointing to lower expected returns than what we've been experiencing over the past decade or so, because valuations in the stock market are very high. Perhaps it might be a good idea to consider investment opportunities outside of the United States, where valuations are lower and future prospects are very bright. We'll talk more about this later. But before we dive into these changes, we should probably investigate the author a little bit, right? We should establish their credibility before we place too much weight upon their opinions. So this book, 2030, was written by a man named Mauro Guillen, who is currently the professor of international management at the Wharton School, which is part of the University of Pennsylvania. He's won numerous teaching awards here and seems to be held in a high regard by students and faculty. So this is a pretty prestigious institution. Wharton is consistently ranked among the best schools in the world, such as Harvard and the like. Elon Musk and Warren Buffett actually attended this school back in the day, and doing my little background background check on this school, I actually also found out that Benjamin Franklin was the founder of the University of Pennsylvania. So that makes this one of the kind of OG educational institutions in the country. So you can draw your own conclusions on Morrow and decide how much weight you want to place on what he has to say, but from my perspective, I think it's safe to say that he knows a lot more than me about the subject, so I'm happy to hear what he has to say. In the year 1820, there was about 1 billion people on Earth. It took a full century later to reach 2 billion people. And then after a hiccup in growth caused by the Great Depression and World War II, the rate at which humans spread across the Earth became startling. By 1960, we had hit 3 billion. 4 billion wasn't long after. Then 5, then 6, and finally 7 billion people were living on Earth by the year 2010. At this point, we became seriously alarmed at our rate of population growth. Were humans going to overrun the Earth and completely destroy it? Was this growth ever going to slow down, or was it just going to keep speeding up? Well, according to the book, it is actually going to slow down by quite a bit. By 2030, we'll be facing a baby drought. The world's population is projected to grow less than half as fast as it did between 1960 and 1990. This has potentially massive implications. Birth rates are declining in East Asia, Europe, and the Americas, but they are declining slower in Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. What this means is there may be a shift in the global balance of economic and geopolitical power. For every baby born right now in a developed country, more than 9 are born in an emerging country. Broken down, it looks something like this. For every baby born in the United States, 4.4 babies are born in China, 6.5 in India, and 10.2 in Africa. Add to this the fact that life expectancies are increasing dramatically in emerging countries, and you get a chart that looks like this. Here we can see the distribution of the world's population forecasted by year according to the United Nations. If we focus on the year 2030, we can see that South Asia, which includes India, will represent the largest population on Earth by region. Africa will have risen to the second largest, and East Asia, which includes China, will be in third place. This was really eye-opening to me personally because I've never really studied the changing demographics of the world in this much detail, but the more I read and looked into this, the more I realized just how big of an impact this actually has. The thing that probably stuck out the most to me was the huge amount of momentum behind the population growth in Africa. This to me seems extremely important because the book went on to talk about how the continent of Africa basically has the opportunity to be the next leaders of the next agricultural and industrial revolutions that take place on the globe. This could definitely cause a bit of a shuffle in who holds a lot of the power in the world, and that kind of seemed to be a key theme of this book, the potential shifting of power. The middle class is seen as the foundation of our modern economy, and for a long time in the developed West, much of the wealth that was created in the society made its way into the middle class. But is that still the case? Many people today would say it's not. According to Morrow, even though the Western middle class is still the richest middle class in the world, their wealth is beginning to stagnate. It's kind of getting stuck in place now. But if we look to the East, that's not at all the case. Every year, more than 100 million people join the middle class in emerging countries, and their wealth is increasing rapidly. To put it in simple terms, the emerging countries' middle class is like a sailboat out at sea with a massive wind in its sails. And the Western middle class is like a little pool floaty just on a nice, calm, lazy river ride. This chart shows the trend unfolding before our eyes. For the past number of years, the United States and Europe has maintained the largest share of middle-class consumers in the world. But we can see a reversal of this trend. As we move to the right, going forwards in time, the eastern side of the world begins to take the largest share of the middle class. If this is true, then that means that the emerging countries will be home to more than half of the world's purchasing power. Now, I found this incredibly fascinating because of what that means. So let's return to my iPhone box for a second. So here's what they mean. The FC is actually an FCC. There's a little C inside of the C. And what that means is the Federal Communications Commission. And basically that means that this product meets the standards set out by this commission. But whose federal commission is this exactly? Who does it belong to? Well, this is the Federal Communications Commission of the United States, of course. And what about the CE? That's the European Union's stamp of approval. So we have a thumbs up from America, and we have a thumbs up from Europe, but what about all the other thumbs in the world? Well, in the present moment, these markets are the most influential, and the most powerful players in the game write the rules. But if Morrow is right, and the players of the game are shifting, then by the next decade, we may see some different symbols on the back of this box. So based on what I've learned studying these trends, I've decided to invest my money in such a way so as to be exposed to these trends. I'm very excited to say that this video is sponsored by Wealthsimple. I've been a very happy user of their platform for some time now, so I decided to reach out to them to see if they would be interested in supporting my work. I was really happy to hear that they were down because I've talked about them a lot in the past for free, and I would continue to do that, but let's actually stop talking about that, shall we? So basically what I'm planning to do is invest in emerging markets. And the way I'm going to do this is buy an index ETF that invests in a number of different companies spread across a number of different countries in emerging markets. Now, the one in particular that I've started buying in my Wealthsimple trade account is VEE. This is the Vanguard FTSE Emerging Markets All Cap Index Fund. A bit of a mouthful. But so far I have about 26 shares worth about $1,000 in there, and I think I'm planning on getting this up to about 5% of my investment portfolio. Now, this is not investment advice, but if you are looking to do something similar and you're wondering how to get it all set up, well, you can use the link down below to sign up for Wealthsimple Trade, and actually, when you deposit and trade $100, you'll get $25 added to your account, which is a nice little bonus. From there, you can trade stocks and ETFs listed in Canadian dollars like VEE completely commission-free on a very user-friendly interface, which is why I love using this platform because you can't beat that. While I do find my mind drifting more and more to the future these days and what that might look like, I still think it's important to try and maintain some of that childlike wonder at which I used to regard the present moment. There's a phrase that somebody commented on one of my previous videos that went something along the lines of, anxiety comes from spending too much time looking into the future, and depression from spending too much time looking into the past. While 2030 may hold a very different world than today, it's only 2021. So maybe it's a good idea not to get too far ahead of ourselves.